To the Station of the Cross, proclaiming the fullness of truth with clarity and charity.
Heard around the world on your Android and Apple mobile devices.
We'll look at the sad state of affairs that is the Trump-Vance campaign barreling down the wrong direction, and the opportunity for course correction that is before us today. On The Simple Truth, I'm Jim Havens. It is Friday with Father. That's Father Stephen Imperato, our co-host every Friday, providing cutting-edge pro-life commentary that you're not going to hear anywhere else. We consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong, chaste heart of Saint Joseph. Always great to be with you. Father, how are you today? And will you lead us in an opening prayer?
Sure, I'm doing great. Welcome back to Florida, Jim. A lot has happened since you've been gone, so let's start off in prayer, let's invoke St. Michael, the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking to ruin his souls. Let's invoke the Blessed Virgin Mary and the powerful Memorare. Remember, O most blessed Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thy intercession, was left unaided. Inspired with this confidence, we fly into thee, O Virgin of Virgins, our Mother. To you we come, before you we stand, simple and sorrowful. O Mother, the Word incarnate, despise not our petitions, but in thy clemency hear and answer us. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, we got a ton to get to today, as the Trump campaign has been running the wrong way fast this week. We're going to get to the voting implications, considerations, and perspectives. But first, we have to take an honest look at what the Trump campaign is actually saying in their own words over the past week. Let's start with last Friday morning. 1 week ago, Trump decided to post the following garbage on his Truth Social platform, quote, "My administration will be great for women and their reproductive rights." So a mind-boggling, unforced error for Trump, willfully using the pro-abortion propaganda lie, quote, reproductive rights, and saying, hey, vote for me. We're all for it. My administration will be great for women and their reproductive rights. He was asked about the post later in the day at a press conference. Here it is.
What led you to post about women's reproductive rights this morning? Has your stance on abortion changed?
No, very good. I'm very strong on women's reproductive rights. The IVF, very strong. I mean, we're leaders in it.
All right, so he doubles down at the press conference. I'm very strong on reproductive rights. And then he also throws in very strong in the IVF. We're leaders in the IVF. Then on Sunday, J.D. Vance goes on Meet the Press, further descends into the abyss. Here it is.
Can you commit, Senator, sitting right here with me today, that if you and Donald Trump are elected, that you will not impose a federal ban on abortion?
I can absolutely commit that, Kristen, and Donald Trump has been as clear about that as possible. I think it's important to step back and say, what has Donald Trump actually said on the abortion question, and how is it different from what Kamala Harris and the Democrats have said? Donald Trump wants to end this culture war over this particular topic. If California wants to have a different abortion policy from Ohio, then Ohio has to respect California and California has to respect Ohio. Donald Trump's view is that we want the individual states and their individual cultures and their unique political sensibilities to make these decisions, because we don't want to have a nonstop federal conflict over this issue. The federal government ought to be focused on getting food prices down and getting housing prices down, issues, of course, where Kamala Harris has been a total disaster. So I think Donald Trump is right. We want the federal government to focus on these big economic and immigration questions. Let the states figure out their own abortion policy.
Let me just follow up with you a little bit on that point, because I've been talking to Republicans, including Senator Lindsey Graham just last week, who've made it very clear that if Donald Trump is elected, if you are elected, they will continue to press this point. Senator Graham said to me, I'm going to keep saying that there should be a federal ban. If such a piece of legislation landed on Donald Trump's desk, would he veto it?
Well, I think he'd be very clear he would not support it. I mean, he said that explicitly. Yeah, I mean, if you're not supporting it as the President of the United States, you fundamentally have to veto it.
So he would veto a federal abortion ban?
I think he would. He said that explicitly, that he would. And
I don't think he's ever said explicitly he would. He said that to you?
Lindsey Graham, Kristen.
All right, so J.D. Vance says Trump would veto pro-life legislation to ban or seemingly even to limit abortion if it were to somehow pass Congress and reach his desk. And Vance full-on supports the so-called states' rights will of the people view on abortion, child murder, basically taking the popular sovereignty position of Stephen Douglas in the 1850s toward the evil of slavery and applying it to child murder today. It was wrong then, and it's wrong now. Lincoln was right. It's going to be all one thing or the other. What side are you on, JD? What side are you on, Donald Trump? We need you on the right side. Right now, you're on the wrong side of this. Finally, we'll get Father in here on this in just a moment. But on Thursday, Trump made more bizarre pro-abortion comments, insinuating that he is or may vote in favor of child murder in Florida by voting yes on the amendment for abortion state referendum. Here he is with NBC News.
In Florida, the state that you are a resident of, there's an abortion-related amendment on the ballot to overturn the 6-week ban in Florida. How are you going to vote on that?
Well, I think the 6 week is too short. It has to be more time, and so and I've told them that I want more weeks.
So you'll vote in favor of the amendment?
I'm voting that I am going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. Look, just so you understand, everybody wanted Roe v. Wade terminated for years, 52 years. I got it done. They wanted it to go back to the states. Exceptions are very important for me, for Ronald Reagan, for others that have navigated this very, very interesting and difficult path.
All right, and Trump's not just saying it there. Here he is also talking to dailymail.com. Here it is.
States now are voting. The people are voting.
You're going to vote in Florida later this year. I mean, have you made up your mind how you're going to vote in their abortion referendum?
But I do want more than 6 weeks. I want more than 6 weeks. I think 6 weeks is a mistake. And I'll be expressing that soon, but I want more than 6 weeks. In Florida, we have a 6-week program, and that's what I believe that you're voting on, and I think it should be more than 6 weeks.
All right, so Trump wants everyone to know he wants more child murder in Florida. 6 weeks is not enough for Trump. He wants far more innocent bloodshed than that. We're going to have plenty of time to discuss this, but wanted to get this all out on the record as we begin. Father Stephen Imperato, your initial thoughts here.
Well, I'm overwhelmed. And of course, this is the way I've been for a week because it's just every single day it's something different. And we're going to get to Lila Rose later. And since last Friday, I've been talking about what are we going to do about Trump? I mean, this guy's a liar. He misrepresents everything. From Ronald Reagan's position to what we all wanted before Roe versus Wade was overturned, the implications of Roe versus Wade. But let's just take one thing. Let's take one thing. He says now, all right, it's a states' rights issue, that it's back where everybody wanted it, back in the states. Right. Well, that's a lie, but let's just assume for a second that's the case. And everybody should decide, right? Everybody should follow their conscience. Let each people decide. We heard Vance say it, Trump say it, right? But he's lying. He's lying because he wants to influence every single state to his way of thinking. And clearly his way of thinking, in spite of the fact that he objects supposedly to abortion up to the day of birth, it seems very clear that he's okay allowing abortion up to the day of birth. It's interesting that I've been telling people prior to last week the distinction between, and I think the last show we did together, I talked about this, the distinction between the Democrats and the Republicans is that the Democrats are pushing for abortion up to the day of birth, and the Republicans are allowing abortion up to the day of birth. And what you just laid out with Trump is absolutely true, because for everybody listening and everybody watching down here in Florida, and if Trump doesn't know this, then he's got his head I'll give him the benefit of doubt in the sand as opposed to someplace else, all right, that he knows that voting for Amendment 4 will be unrestricted abortion up to the day of birth, right? So he influenced Arizona. He influenced Alabama. He wants to influence Florida. And in all those instances, we went from abortion restrictions, reasonable abortion restrictions, to abortion up to the day of birth. That's what Arizona's looking at. That's what Florida's looking at, right? Alabama came out a little bit better. So he's disingenuous. He's lying. And, we can give him the benefit of the doubt and say, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about, which means that he's stupid, right? Or he's lying, which means he's just completely duplicitous and taking the pro-life movement, pro-lifers, and everyone who supported him as a moron. We got moron tattooed on our heads. And the problem is there's so many people that are willing to accept all this nonsense and make excuses. And just as we heard 4 years ago about Biden, and then everybody said, what about Trump? Right now, all right, we're all, Trump, and everybody said, well, what about Kamala? Right? I mean, this is, it's insane. And again, it goes back to a depravity, and the people have become depraved. This is clearly the same as what God said to Moses, go down to your people, they become depraved. Well, the people in the United States, the conservatives, the Republicans, the pro-lifers, even so many pro-lifers have become depraved.
Yeah, we got to cut through it all and get to the clarity on it, and we're going to do that today, so make sure you stay tuned. And if you have any questions, any comments on this, by the way, we will get to the voting implications. I think that's what a lot of people want to consider and think about. How should I be thinking about this with respect to voting? And so we will get there. If you have any questions or comments, though, phone lines are open now, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. And a lot of this shouldn't be surprising. If you've been tracking with this program, it wouldn't be surprising to you. We've been talking about this for a long time. This is the result of the pro-life movement not stepping up. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Here at the Station of the Cross, we proudly bring the truths of the Catholic faith to countless listeners through radio and mobile devices, and we're grateful for the feedback we've received.
I'm a widower, parent of 3 almost adults, and listen to you guys around the clock. Father McTigg, Society of Jesus, he's wonderful. Mother Miriam, of course, the Divine Office, and many other great things that Station of the Cross does. So thanks very much for your great work.
I had a friend at work email me and tell me about the Station of the Cross a couple months after it started, and I was so excited. I tuned into it, and I found that I love the Catholic station.
If you've been blessed by listening to the Station of the Cross, let us know. Call 1-877-888-6279, extension 112. Then share your testimonial with us. The Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network is dedicated to answering the critical need of access to quality, consistent, professional, and proven Catholic programming. We cannot rely on other media outlets to properly represent our church. Catholic radio reaches Catholics, non-Catholic Christians, and non-believers alike. As a nonprofit lay organization financially independent of your diocese, our apostolate is listener-supported.
What you're offering and giving to me, you deserve to get back because you're offering more than I can give.
I learned so much through the Station on the Cross. I listen to the radio station daily, and I absolutely love it.
I was attending the chapel and places like that, and through your programs, I was able to find out how other Protestants had come back into the Catholic Church. God bless the Station of the Cross.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with Father Stephen Imbarrato, talking about the Trump administration, comments made by Donald Trump and J.D. Vance over the past week, just continuing to dig in a horrible pit, going in the wrong direction here, pro-abortion direction. Very sad to see. Again, shouldn't be surprising to us if we've been paying attention. There was a lack of pro-life leadership stepping up during the primary process, which is where we could have really used some help and some voices in trying to really find a candidate who is going to be truly pro-life and lead, especially with respect to taking a stand on constitutional personhood. Father and I, on this program and elsewhere, we had been proclaiming it and calling for it, looking for it, and even doing our best to make inroads with various folks in different campaigns and trying to even draft a candidate. And in the end, none of it worked out. We had no help from the pro-life movement on this, and we've got what we've got, and here we are. But just to put a little bit more on the record, because this continues to develop, the campaign has since tried to walk back Trump's vile comments with respect to insinuating that he's going to be voting for Amendment 4, the pro-abortion referendum in the state of Florida. And so the national press secretary for the Trump campaign released the following statement, quote, "He has not yet said how he will vote on the ballot initiative in Florida. He simply reiterated that he believes 6 weeks is too short," end of quote. So they continue to keep the waters good and muddy there, terrible and muddy, in fact. And they also sent J.D. Vance out earlier this morning, to try to do some damage control. We're going to give you a clip of that in just a moment. But first, yesterday evening, Trump was in La Crosse, Wisconsin for a town hall moderated by Tulsi Gabbard. He had this to say about IVF, a big advance in terms of the policy he's proposing here. Absolutely evil, and trying to get all of us to cooperate in this evil. Here it is.
And I've been seeing a lot of IVF, and I kept hearing that I'm against it, and I'm actually very much for it. In fact, in Alabama, where the judge ruled against it, and I countered the judge and came out with a very strong statement for it. And the Alabama...
You were very quick in your response to that.
I was, but they were too. They were amazing. The legislature approved virtually my statement. I'm in full IVF, and it has really gone. It's terrific. And I said, so with the tips and with the Social Security, the no taxes on Social Security, I said maybe for IVF, and I've been looking at it, and what we're going to do is for people that are using IVF, which is fertilization, the government is going to pay for it, or we're going to get or mandate your insurance company to pay for it, which is going to be great. We're going to do that.
I can't tell you how life-changing that would be for so many families, because it costs a lot of money.
All right, so you've heard the Republicans be on the side of against taxpayer funding of abortion. Well, this is full-on taxpayer funding of abortion in the form of IVF, in the form of creating human beings in a laboratory and then discarding many of them in the process, killing them in the process, and also freezing many in the process indefinitely, in fact. And so this is just a report. We read this a couple weeks ago from the New York Times. This is from August 12th, an article in the New York Times where they report there's no official tally of the number of frozen embryos in the United States. Experts estimate it's in the millions. You often hear the number 1 million children frozen because of IVF indefinitely. Well, the Times is saying it's in the millions, plural. How many, we have no idea. And this is no way to be treating innocent human life. This is evil all the way around, but yet they try to make it palatable and deceive people by trying to pretend, well, infertility is such a terrible thing, which it is. People suffering from that, marriages suffering from infertility, it is a terrible suffering. But this is not a solution. This is committing an evil and thinking that somehow this is a good. There's nothing, this is not good. And yet there are many children who are born this way. They are good, right? But they were conceived in an evil, by evil means. And that's a fact that they have to come to grips with in their own lives, causing even, great suffering there. And, many of them would do well even to stand up and advocate against IVF and speak about what the ramifications are, even from someone who's been conceived in that way. So once a person is there, of course, full rights to that person. We love that person. But we can't be treating people like commodities. We can't be committing this evil of IVF and killing these children, freezing these children, all of this evil that is taking place here. And now we're going to be paying for it under the Trump administration. I thought they were against things like this. I thought they were against Obamacare and the mandates for abortion or abortifacients and things like this. Now they're pushing for it. What in the world is going on here? Absolutely terrible. We'll get to the Vance comments in a minute from this morning. But Father, any thoughts you want to add in here?
Let's put this in a context, too. This is a guy who came within millimeters of getting his head blown off, right? Getting killed. You would think that he'd have a great appreciation for life every moment, every second, every breath. And since then, right, he's just, as the title of the show goes, gone off the rails. He's become demented. He's become depraved. And I don't think we need to go that deep into IVF, because every single Catholic, every pro-lifer, anyone who calls themselves pro-life understands the immoral implications of IVF. There's various tentacles, which you have pointed out. We've talked about many, many times. All right. This is just him absolutely pandering for dark votes at the expense of the pro-life movement and the Catholics who would want to vote for President Trump. And so I think I mentioned in the show 2 weeks ago, I don't remember, but last Friday I posted, I think it was last Friday, something about being uncommitted, right? That the Democratic Party has an uncommitted movement within the Democratic Party. Now, it's the anti-Semite, pro-terrorist, pro-Hamas group, but they got tens of thousands of signatures. And it came to me that maybe that's what we should start. Maybe that is what the pro-life movement needs to do. And not say, hey, look, we're no longer going to support you, but we're going to be uncommitted 70 days out. It was 75 days at the time. 75 days out. We're not going to commit to voting for you, all right, until you start thinking this out, until you start thinking about the babies, thinking about the pro-life movement who elected you in 2016. And what is the pro-life movement looking for? We're not looking for the Trump of the first administration at this point in time, where we were hoping that maybe he'd implement a presidential executive order on abortion. We're looking for the Trump of the 2016 Hillary debate, where he just said to Hillary, look, you think it's okay to tear babies limb from their mother's womb, and I don't think it's okay. That's all we want from Trump, but that's not what we're getting. And he could be remaining silent on all these issues, but he's purposely, every single day, he's coming out with another slap in the face of the pro-life movement. And I think that it's time for us to say, not that President Trump, we're not going to vote for you. We're not done, because I think it's a legitimate case that Kamala Harris would be worse. Nobody's disputing that. But, all right, to at least hold our vote over his head, leverage our vote, make our vote something important and sacred, as opposed to just saying, well, no matter what he says, no matter what he does, I'm voting for him because Kamala Harris is worse. This is something that we really need to take a look at, and I think we're going to dive deep into that in the rest of the show.
Yeah. Let's do one more clip and then come back to that. And yeah, there's a lot to get to there. But first, J.D. Vance this morning, they rolled him out to CNN of all places, to have him make some comments. And so with regard to Trump, his position on abortion and Amendment 4 in Florida and all of this, he just reiterated the same old tired talking points about states' rights and all of that we just keep hearing ad nauseum, sadly. And then he had this to say. I believe here we're going to hear him talking about IVF, and listen to what he says. This is to me one of the most troubling things of all, because he is a Catholic and he knows the immoral aspects of IVF. And he pretends there's no such thing as any immoral aspects to IVF, and that this is a complete good, and that this is actually pro-life and such a wonderful thing. And we know that he's lying. He's lying about this. He's deceiving people on this. What does this do to hearts and minds? This sort of deception, these sorts of lies, terrible ramifications and consequences here. Here he is, J.D. Vance, this morning on CNN.
The former president, announced yesterday that he wants insurers or the government to pay for IVF. How?
Well, he's been consistent again in this, John, that he wants people to be able to afford to have families. And it's one of the reasons why we've supported an extended child tax credit that Donald Trump actually got done. He didn't just talk about it, he got it done. He supported a whole host of policies to make it easier for women to choose life, to bring new life into the world. And this is just part and parcel of his broader view that if we want to have more families in this country, and I think all of us do, we have to empower young women and young families to make those choices and to have access to what they need.
All right, yeah, I think it goes on even from there, but yeah, he's part of the lie, part of the deception here. Look, nobody needs IVF. All right, infertility, yes, that's a terrible suffering, and so married couples that are struggling with that, there are solutions, right? There are places to go with that suffering. IVF is not one of those solutions. That's committing another evil on top of it. But there certainly is adoption. There certainly is foster care. There certainly is ways to get involved in mentoring opportunities and various things. And so, look, we've got to be honest about what is good and what is evil. J.D. Vance knows better. He's not willing to be honest. Unfortunately, just he's made of himself just another two-faced politician. Father, your thoughts?
You remember about a year ago, the pro-life movement, the leaders of the pro-life movement, I think led by Kristen Hawkins, for her name comes into my mind, where they laid out an agenda for Trump after they realized that he's no longer pro-life, that would empower women to have babies, to empower men and women, husbands and wives to have children, right? That was the new pro-life agenda, the new political pro-agenda. Well, this is when you trust politicians. Right? What happens, right, to the pro-life agenda? It gets distorted, it gets twisted, and it turns into a pro-death agenda. This is, again, another example of how much the pro-life movement is complicit from the beginning. We are where we are today in this political mess because it's election cycle after election cycle after election cycle. We've demanded nothing from the Republican Party, and here we are.
Yeah, abortion is unconstitutional. Read the 14th Amendment. That's our policy position. It's not political. It's moral. We all need to know it and stand up and speak it strongly. Abortion is unconstitutional. End it now. We're going to be right back with more. Stay tuned.
Have you ever dialogued with someone who espouses relativism, which says there is no truth, or it might be true for you, but not for me? It's pretty frustrating. Deep down, we know these claims are false, but we often don't know why. Here's the reason. To say there is no truth is a contradiction. The assertion is tantamount to saying it's true that there is no truth. Plain absurdity. Now, the other position, there is no absolute truth, just truth relative to the individual set of beliefs, is problematic as well. The usage of the verb is implies an assertion about the objective order of things. It's the same thing as saying it's absolutely true that there is no absolute truth, which of course is a contradiction. No matter how the relativist slices the pie, he ends up with a contradiction, making relativism an unreasonable worldview. I'm Carlo Broussard with a ready reason for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
Hello, this is Steve Gleason with your 1-minute tool for Catholic evangelism. Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. Have you ever replaced pronouns in the Bible such as who, whom, whosoever, ye, you, etc., and replaced those words with your name, and therefore you personalize the Bible to yourself? Do you do that? Is that a safe way to read the Bible? Well, here's your 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. Number 1, Bible complexity. Mechanics study motors, architects study design, linguists study syntax, but for the most part, Christians don't study the how-tos of safe biblical interpretation called hermeneutics. Secondly, Aquinas. In the Summa, we see the caution. Aquinas says of the Bible, quote, the manner of its speech transcends every science because in one and the same sentence, while it describes a fact, it reveals a mystery. And thirdly, a tough comeback. I know it seems plausible to simply say the Bible is a love letter straight from God to humanity, but wait a minute, a sentence or a paragraph in a love letter has context. Yes, with great caution, we can personalize some context, but remember, when you're at the central figure in the Bible, God isn't, and that's just wrong.
Welcome back to the Symbol of Truth. Jim Havens here with Father Stephen Imbarado. And I want to thank everybody who was able to come out to that 25th anniversary celebration for the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. It was a great day, a great evening. There was one point in the evening that if you were there, you may have been confused. I do want to bring it up in case there was confusion. I was certainly confused by it. Don't question his intent here. I'm sure it was good. But when Raymond Arroyo stood up in the Q&A and made it a point to speak to Trump's view on abortion, well, the question came from the crowd during Candace Owens's portion of the Q&A at the dinner, and she kind of punted on it, didn't really want to speak to it, it seemed to me. But then when Raymond got up there, he wanted to talk about it, and he said something to the effect of pointing out to the crowd and saying, look, you said you wanted it overturned and sent back to the states, and Trump did it, and now you want a federal ban. No, it doesn't work that way, or you can't do that, or something like that. I not only was that confusing, I found it actually quite offensive in the sense that I don't know who he's talking about saying you wanted it overturned and sent back to the states and you don't want a federal ban. Now you want a federal ban. No, I've always wanted a federal ban. So he's not talking about me. Not sure who he's talking about, but I think some of his confusion there, and that's kind of the idea of those that are all in on Trump and making excuses for him, even in the midst of all of this. You'll kind of hear this sort of thing from the pundits on Fox News and various other places. But I think the point here is that I think a lot of people are confused, including Raymond. And where does that confusion coming from? It really falls at the feet of the pro-life leadership, because what has the position been? What is the position of the pro-life movement? I think Raymond's being sincere. He thinks the view has been from the pro-life movement is just kick it back to the states. And now they've changed their mind and they're saying a federal ban. Well, the pro-life leadership isn't calling for much of a ban at all. We're trying to get them to do that. Actually, they're not really doing that. Really, I wish they were. But did they say just send it back to the states? Yeah, maybe some of them did. But the point is like, what is their position? And if everybody were clear, if we could get together on what the policy position ought to be for pro-lifers and say that abortion is unconstitutional, constitutional personhood for the preborn, that's what we're standing on. No abortion is good, not even these so-called exceptions. These are real people, real human beings. Every human being is a human person. We stand for all of them. That ought to be the position from every pro-life leader. That ought to be the position of every bishop and priest and for all of us, right? And so that is what we need to be echoing forth with one voice. So I hope that clears up some confusion there. But also when it comes to voting, I think some of that is also a concern. People don't want people not to vote for Trump because they do see him as being so much better in so many respects, including with respect to abortion. Even though he's saying these outlandish things, there's still a chance he gets in there and he completely flips. I mean, he's a politician now. At this point, he's no longer much of an outsider anymore. He's pretty full-on politician, and they change pretty quickly. And what he's willing to do once he's elected can change very quickly. And that's our best bet. Once, if we were to have one of the two in there, by far, he's the better bet, right? And so I think people are concerned. They don't want to see him lose. They don't want to see him lose votes over this. But at the same time, we can't deny what is being said here. At the same time, Father, I want to get your comments, but first I want to play this NBC News report just so we have a sense. This is what the left is doing with all of this. They're trying to stir this up. This plays right into their agenda, and they don't want us to vote for Trump. And I think, again, there are real concerns about whether we ought to vote for him at this point. We're going to drill down on that in a moment. But first, let's hear how NBC News is spinning it. Here it is.
Mr. Trump revealing a new policy proposal in an interview with NBC News, pledging that during his second term, the popular and pricey fertility treatment IVF would be free.
So we are paying for that treatment.
All Americans who want it?
For all Americans that get it, all Americans that need it. So we're going to be paying for that treatment, or we're going to be mandating that the insurance company pay.
The former president not providing specifics about how the procedure, which costs about $20,000 per cycle, would be paid for. A massive healthcare expense after Mr. Trump and congressional Republicans tried multiple times to repeal the Affordable Care Act in his first term. It's also unclear how Mr. Trump plans to vote on a proposal to overturn the 6-week abortion ban in his home state of Florida.
How are you going to vote on that?
Well, I think the 6 week is too short. It has to be more time.
The Harris campaign responding, there's only one candidate in this race who trusts women and will protect our freedom to make our own healthcare decisions.
All right, so you see how they're spinning it. Don't vote for Trump, you pro-lifers. You can't vote for him. Look how terrible he is. And they have a point in what they're saying here. And then to everybody else, Kamala, anybody who is pro-abortion, Kamala's your woman, actually what they want to say at the end. Look, Trump's not going to out pro-abortion Kamala. I don't know why he thinks this is a good look or a good political move in any respect. And just to bring it full circle, Harrison Butker had an interesting tweet that I noticed on this, back to Trump's tweet saying my administration will be great for women and their reproductive rights. This is what Butker said. I think this is a view that probably it expresses this view well that many hold. It says, no party or candidate is perfect. I implore my fellow Catholic J.D. Vance to help bring the Republican Party back in line with the foundational platform that all life is valuable and there can be no compromise when it comes to defending the unborn. However, with that said, quote, our obligation is to vote for the lesser of two evils because voting for a lesser evil preserves the good that could potentially be lost, end of quote. And that quote is from Father Chad Ripperger. And so I think this expresses what a lot of people are thinking on this. At the same point, look, we got to be honest about what they're saying and what the ramifications are. And what is the line where you say, I just can't in good conscience pull the lever? Father, your thoughts?
All right, we're moving too fast. All right, we're going to have to take this show, break it down into 3 different shows. This is a furious pace, and anyone listening and watching is not going to be able to process this. Let me go back, all right, to you talking about human life begins at conception. All right, a guy just tweeted me and he says, yes, at conception God creates life. How's the 14th Amendment applied? So let me start off with just quoting the line in the 14th Amendment for everyone that is listening and watching, so you clearly understand everything that Jim said before. Okay. It says, nor can any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process, nor can any state deprive any person of equal protection under the law. So the singular question becomes, who is a constitutional person? All right. And Jim and I are saying clearly, Josh Craddock. All right. All the constitutionalists saying from the moment of conception, historically, that's the case. OK, so that's where we're getting all of this. All right. That this is already a done deal from a constitutional standpoint. And that's what we're demanding. OK. Now, as far as this whole voting thing, all right, I'm getting thrown in my face incrementalism all the time, the lesser two evils, and that's what it applies. And I'm not going to take a deep dive into incrementalism. I'm going to do a video tomorrow on it. I have a couple of posts on X and Facebook about it. But this whole idea of incrementalism, that somehow you can vote for the lesser of evil because it's perfectly moral to save as many babies' lives as you can until you can save all the babies' lives. That goes back to JP2, Evangelum Vitae. All right, that's fine. But the fallacy that we've been living with in terms of incrementalism in the pro-life movement for decades is we've been using it as an excuse, and we're seeing it now, to just do nothing. Absolutely nothing. And people are thinking that it's perfectly okay to just vote for Trump silently, without any pushback, without any qualms, all right? And that, I'm sorry, is wrong. We have a moral obligation on election day to vote. In good conscience, you can vote for Trump. You can not vote for Trump. You can't vote for Kamala Harris because there's no way she's the lesser of two evils in any context, all right? But if you're going to vote for Trump, between now and election day, you have a moral obligation to let the Trump campaign know, let Trump know, and especially J.D. Vance, because as Jim pointed out, he's Catholic. He's tossed aside his Catholic faith for political expediency. That's idolatry, right? We have a moral obligation to tell President Trump that, look, I'm going to vote for you, but I am not giving you any idea in my vote that I'm okay with your pro-life position, right? And so that's what I've been doing now, pushing back, complaining about Trump. And there's people who want to vote for Trump, declaring, well, incrementalism, lesser of two evils, it's okay, right? And actually turning around and saying, because I'm criticizing Trump, because I am saying I'm non-committal to election day, that somehow I'm supporting Kamala Harris, I'm supporting the Democrats, I'm supporting the pro-aborts. No, that's evil. Everyone has a moral obligation between the time that they vote, right, to do what they can to maximize their vote. Their vote is sacred. It's important. We have a moral obligation to vote. But we also have a moral obligation that if we're going to vote for someone who's a lesser of two evils, who's not the perfect candidate, and that's every candidate, to let them know, all right, where we are unhappy with them. Or if you don't, when you vote, you're giving them the perception that you're okay with everything that they stand for. And I would dare say there's nobody right now who's going to vote for Trump who's happy with everything that he stands for. No way. We haven't even gotten into the LGBTQ thing, right? And all the other immoral things that he supports. So this is important. This whole idea of incrementalism, the lesser two evils, Chad Rippinger, I mean, absolute disgrace. You just can't throw this stuff out there without explaining what our moral obligations are. I am a moral theologian. I have a master's in bioethics. I know what I'm talking about. I was talking about this stuff in the early 2000s as a pastor trying to convince my Democratic parishioners in northern New Mexico that if you're going to insist on voting for a Democrat, well, you better send them a letter saying, a Catholic Democrat, I think it was Kerry back in those days, all right, you better send him a letter and tell him, all right, that I'm voting for you in spite of the fact that you're a baby killer, because if you don't, he's going to think that you're supporting his position that it's okay to kill babies. This is basic stuff. Let's think this out. But I tell you, as much as I've been putting this out there, the Trumpers and Catholics, pro-lifers, all right, are doing nothing other than, oh no, you don't care. You're just gonna let Kamala Harris get in. And I tell you what, it is absolutely scary to me. I haven't lost any sleep over it because I sleep well because my conscience is clear every single night when I go to sleep. But I tell you what, I mean, I made one comment that we're down here working our butts off trying to defeat Amendment 4, which will help Trump. Defeating Amendment 4 in Florida will help Trump win Florida. And he's going to turn around and just vote for Amendment 4, right? Which undermines everything we're doing out here, and it might cost in the state of Florida. This is when you are depraved, when you're in the dark. This is the type of stuff that happens, and we're seeing it every day out of the Trump campaign, out of his supporters, even pro-lifers and so-called devout Catholics.
Yeah, a lot to get in here today, and trying to get to these Lila Rose clips. We're going to have to hold them until the next segment and see if we can get to as much of it as we can. If you want to give a call in, though, any question or comment that you have today, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. And so, various ways to kick this around and think about it. Again, we've got to acknowledge the reality of what it is, and it really is that the Trump-Vance campaign is going more and more pro-abortion. They're pro-abortion light, I guess, if you want to call it that, in comparison to Harris and Walz, but still pro-abortion. And all of us have to look in the mirror, and all of us have to examine our own consciences. Are we truly pro-life? It's not something we can be anything other than 100% on. We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
The Catholic Current, bringing Christ to the world and the world to Christ.
You are worth my time. You're worth my undivided attention. God is blessing us by putting us together.
It's funny because people talk about quality time, and honestly, I think it's more about quantity time. But if you're actually engaged with them, whatever it is you're doing, you're spending quality and quantity time with them.
The Catholic Current, 5 p.m. Eastern, from the Station of the Cross and on the iCatholic Radio mobile app. Hear a powerful sermon you need to share with a loved one? Maybe there's a guest, prayer, or teaching segment that deserves another listen. You can listen to any of our network-produced programs at your convenience by finding us wherever you enjoy podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and the free iCatholic Radio app. Be uplifted in your faith. Listen today at thestationofthecross.com or on your favorite podcasting platform.
Hi, Joe McLean here, host of A Catholic Take, heard on the Station of the Cross each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. A bold synthesis of information and inspiration, keeping you up to date on the news and issues that you may have missed from a courageous Catholic perspective. That's A Catholic Take, weekday morning, 7 a.m. right here on the Station of the Cross and the free iCatholic Radio mobile app. Download it today. God love you.
Have you ever heard the claim that a child developing in the womb is merely a clump of cells? Think about this. By the 8th week of development, a fetus already possesses more than 90% of the physical formation found in adults, including brain development, limb structure, and a heartbeat. Human life is sacred. Think about it. CoalitionForLife.com.
The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with Father Stephen Imbarrato, talking about the descent of Trump-Vance, the campaign that is going in a deep, dark place very fast with respect to our preborn brothers and sisters whom we ought to love and strive to protect with everything we've got, with maximum determination, all of them, not making exceptions for murdering some, or with respect to at a certain point, or because of certain conditions, or any of it. We need to love our little brothers and sisters, love the least of these, as our Lord called us to do. We've got to end this evil of abortion, of child murder that is ongoing every single day by the thousands in the U.S., hundreds of thousands worldwide. That's what we're talking about. So Lila Rose did a podcast, a live, basically, on her YouTube channel a couple days ago. I did watch it in its entirety. Father, you sent it over to me. And so a couple clips we want to get to here. Let's do the first one, and then we'll talk about that. Here it is.
So what's needed in the pro-life movement is you. We need more of you. We need more people who are willing to speak the truth when it's popular and unpopular, in and out of season, who are willing to fight for the babies, who are willing to lend your time, your efforts, your resources, everything you can to this fight. We need more people in the fight. And that's part of the job of Live Action, to galvanize more people into the fight. And I'm proud to say we are bigger than any other pro-abortion group online, dominating the news cycle with against the pro-abortion groups. Unfortunately, we are fighting an uphill battle when it comes to the media institutions, when it comes to the ballot initiatives, when it comes to all of these different factors that are fighting for the abortion side. There's a fight to be had.
All right, so there's Lila Rose. There is a fight to be had, absolutely. And so, look, I agree with the first part. We need you. We need every single person in on this. And her point to say, well, look, Live Action is the greatest organization, greatest pro-life organization in terms of the media and what we're able to get out. And it's like, okay, maybe so. And if I take that for granted, then all the more responsibility. And this is why we're calling on Lila Rose and Live Action to take a very strong position on constitutional personhood, not just mentioning it once in a while that abortion is unconstitutional, but making this the thrust of everything they're talking about. They could do it. They could be that voice in the media. They could amplify this and make this the position that everybody ought to know, including Raymond and Trump and Vance and everybody. Don't just mention it a little bit here and there. Proclaim it from the rooftops day in and day out. So she kind of has the first part, but she's not really putting it together. Father, your thoughts?
Yeah, there's no clear marching orders here. You want all these people to specifically do what? Are you willing to educate them? Are you willing to make sure that they are understanding and clearly understanding the mission at hand, the goal that we are to abolish abortion? And then how do we do that, right? How do we come to abolishing abortion? And Lila knows it's the 14th Amendment, all right? And I don't know if you're going to play this clip, and I don't want to preempt it, but she goes on to say that she's somewhat incredulous. She can't understand why so many in the pro-life movement don't get the 14th Amendment. Even leadership doesn't get the 14th Amendment. Well, she just said she's the largest pro-life organization out there, 7.1 million followers. If your followers don't get, all right, the 14th Amendment, what I quoted before, and then the implications that Jim laid out, all to about abolishing abortion, recognizing the constitutional rights of the preborn from the moment of conception, thus abolishing abortion, rendering abortion unconstitutional. It's your fault, Lila. It's your fault, right? And if the other pro-life leaders are not getting it, well, you're in contact with them every day. Every single pro-life leader, when she came out with this video, and actually when she came out with the X post, all right, she started getting lambasted by everybody, just as I said before. Oh, you're supporting Kamala. You want Kamala. Trump's gonna lose. You know, you're telling everybody don't vote for Trump. And she wasn't saying that. She never said that, right? She just said, wait a minute, we need to leverage our vote, just what I said before, right? Everybody came to her defense. Margie Dannenfelser, Kristen Hawkins, all claiming to be her friend. Well, if they're all your friend, Lila, then why aren't they on board with the 14th Amendment? Why aren't they on board the new North Star? Why aren't they on board with this whole abolitionist movement? Why are they still confused, right? So there is a level of disingenuousness here, right? And when I saw her video, I immediately sat down and made a video of myself. You can go to my YouTube channel. It's Father Imbarata Responds to Lila Rose's response to Trump. Right. And that's what I did. And I agreed with almost everything she said. And I put it in the context that I just want to build on where she is and clarify certain things so that everybody knows where we're at and where we need to be to finally end this nightmare.
Yeah, we need a course correction here in the pro-life movement leadership. Also in the church leadership with respect to our bishops, we need to be talking this way. Abortion is murder. We're talking about child murder. Let's abolish abortion. It's unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment. That's our policy position. Let's proclaim it from the rooftops, and it needs to start with one in terms of the big pro-life leaders. We believe that one is Lila Rose, that she would be the first one to flip and correct course on this and make that the main message, the main thrust, and then who's going to be next after that. But Lila gets it. She knows it. She just has to make it the main thing. But here's what she had to say about the 14th Amendment. She knows it. Here it is.
I should have mentioned this to you guys earlier. A lot of the rhetoric right now coming from the Republican Party is that this is a states' rights issue. You probably have heard this, right? And I think there's even some pro-life people are saying, well, is it a states' rights issue? Maybe, I guess. The reality is this. Our Constitution, under the 14th Amendment right now, says that no state has any right to deprive life of any person without due process. Abortion is already unconstitutional. There's already a promise of equal protection under the law for all people. And unborn babies, scientifically speaking, are as much of a human being as a born child. And if you're a human, you're a person. We've had a lot of issues historically as a country when we've said people were less than human, or they were human but less than a person. You know, we said certain groups in the past are not persons, but maybe they're human, but they're not persons. No, if you're a human, you're a person. The science is very clear that human life doesn't begin at birth, it begins at the moment of fertilization. And you deserve the right to not be killed. And states like California, which is a state that has abortion up until birth right now, does not have the right to deprive you of your right to life if you are a baby. It does not have that right. So this idea that, well, we just let the states decide who lives and who dies is false.
All right, so she knows it. Don't just mention it once in a while. Make the main thing the main thing. Make this the thrust. Push it with all you got, Lila. We're in your corner rooting for you. Hope you be willing to maybe join us with the Men's March, themensmarch.com, rallyforpersonhood.com. Father, your thoughts.
Well, a couple things. In the beginning of her video, you know, she actually admits that she covers so many topics and so many issues, and once in a while she talks pro-life, and once in a while she talks politics, and then later on we didn't hear it, although she did allude to it, that so many people don't get it. And at one point she mentions the pro-life leaders. And it's because, right, she is not as clear as she should be. And the reason why she's not clear is not because she doesn't say it once in a while, but it's lost in all these other messages, all the topics that she deals with. And as we've been saying, the pro-life movement has to clear the table, clear the slate. And for the last 70 days, 68 days now, focus on this. And go back to all the interviews that we played, all the clips we played, J.D. Vance and Trump. Imagine if the answer to every interview, every news person was by Trump and Vance, John Kennedy from Louisiana's answer. Well, what about the babies? What about the rights of the babies, right? You want to talk about women's rights. Let's talk about the babies. Let's talk about the right to babies. That would shut them up pretty darn quick. That's how you shut down the other side, and then that's how you lay the groundwork, the foundation for the narrative that this is a constitutional issue, a constitutional crisis, and this is how we abolish abortion.
Awesome. Please close us out with a final blessing.
The Lord be with you all. May Almighty God bless you, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Go out into the world, do the right thing. You don't need to withhold your vote from Trump, all right? You need to tell.
Hi, my name is Nathan Wigfield, Executive Director of the St.